Hi, and welcome to my sci-fi, fantasy, and horror short fiction roundup for September, October 2022. So this is the first month that I'm going to do it like this. I sort of started doing it earlier. I'm posting my roundups mid-month-ish, so each roundup will include stories I read in 2 different months. For this roundup, it's stories from September and October 2022. And I'm just going to dive right in. My first story pick for this roundup is A Dervish Among the Graves of Ghazni by Tanvir Ahmed in the Deadlands. And it starts off with a great line. Among the strange happenstances and peculiar mischances of ancient times is the story of a dervish in Ghazni who dwelt only among the dead. And this is just an exquisitely wrought tale, full of beauty and light, love and death, and also revenge. Ahmed's story has the texture and tone of an ancient fable, but with the grit and nerve and heart that makes it shimmer and glow with both life and grief. We follow two story threads, the past and the present. And as the past of the dervish in Ghazni is revealed, the urgency and desperation of the present increases. I can't say enough about the story and the way it feels both ancient and brand new all at once. Read it. That's all I can say. Also, on a related note, the Deadlands is running a Kickstarter right now to fund more great stories, poetry, and nonfiction. They have some awesome swag available, including hoodies, mugs, story and poetry critiques, and some really stunning limited edition artwork. Check it out at Kickstarter. Just support them if you can. They're a great zine, and I hope they stick around. My next story pick is The Red Lehenga by Tanya Idalot in Tales and Feathers, #1, issue 1. Now, Tales and Feathers is a brand new zine focusing on the cozy, the comforting, and the sentiment. No plot, just vibes. Every month we'll release a new short story of 2,500 words or less that luxuriates in the slice of life fantasy genre. So that's the setup for this new magazine. And I have to say, I've read several of the stories in the zine, and they are wonderful. Each one is wonderful. Now, The Red Lehenga is an intriguing tale, really, about a young woman who feels like her mother is trying to push her into a marriage, any marriage, it seems, regardless of her own wishes. As the narrator says in the story, as I grew older, my mother paraded men before me, a neighbor's son in his final year of dental school, her friend's cousin who had a career in the Emirates, another neighbor's son who was guaranteed a management role in his father's business when he earned his MBA, her childhood friend's nephew, kind and unambitious, a man someone else could easily love one day. I smiled at them all and politely declined. I had my own dreams to pursue. Sorry about that. Anyway, so yeah, that's sort of the setup for this story, but there is a very neat twist at the end that changes the perspective on what's been happening, and which is great. But what I love most about the story is its beautiful prose and the way it weaves the vibe of an old fairy tale into the present day. My next story pick is Elephant Doctor by Tenuka in Worlds of Possibility. Now, Worlds of Possibility is an interesting and really quite wonderful project by Julia Rios. And I'll read from the website. In the Worlds of Possibility project, Julia Rios buys original stories, poems, and art by other creators to display on this website. Paid subscribers directly sponsor these pieces with their subscription fees and get to see the contents before the general public. So it's kind of a neat new way to publish these stories. And I've read several stories from Worlds of Possibility, and I love them. Now, I really love, so this is Elephant Doctor by Tenuka. And Tenuka's story is a quirky, slightly surreal story with a razor-sharp sense of humor and a definite eye for how people are treated very differently depending on who they are and what they look like. It deals with sizeism and discrimination in healthcare, and I just love the subtle, matter-of-fact voice of the story. Siva has been having real trouble finding a doctor who takes them seriously and who will use their pronouns. And she has almost run out of hope when she meets Dr. Gajan, who is definitely a different kind of doctor. So I would definitely say check out Worlds of Possibility. It's a wonderful new venue for short fiction. My next story pick is also from Worlds of Possibility. It's 3 a.m. Eternal by Eden Royce. This is another fabulous story, and we meet Michaela, who is worried sick about her mother. Now, in the world that we find ourselves in here, it's very dangerous if you're a human and you don't come home at night. To quote the story, it's a fallacy that the witching hour is at midnight. In reality, the time when the veil between the worlds is thinnest is at 3 in the morning. That's why the bars in New Charleston all close at 2 for humans, so they can get their asses home before the clocks strike the top of the hour, and control of the city passes to the witches, the haints, and other creatures of the night. So yeah, Michaela's mother has not come home at the 2 o'clock curfew, and she cannot be found even by scrying. Michaela has called in her sister witches, Shavon and Io, to help her find her mother before she ends up in the kind of trouble no human can easily escape. This story has a lot of magic, a bit of romance, and I love the world building and the way we are introduced to this world and these characters. It's an adventure in the middle of the night that does not end the way Michaela might have thought. My next story pick is The Angel Azrael and the War Ghosts by Peter Derbyshire and Beneath Ceaseless Skies, issue 367. I'll read the opening line. It was a gunshot that woke the angel Azrael from his dream of the wars and put him on the path to redemption. A single shot that cracked through the hot air of the day like the world had snapped and broken somewhere. I'm jumping the gun on this story since it's not available online yet, but it is available if you subscribe to Beneath Ceaseless Skies. So, I mean, this scene delivers so many great stories, so it's well worth a subscription. Now, I read my first Angel Azrael story, also in BCS, in March this year. It was The Angel Azrael Encounters the Revelation Pilgrims and Other Curiosities. And I just fell in love with this strange, ravaged world and the creatures and characters in it. There's an old war looming in the background, a war where the angels, banished from heaven, destroyed the earth and killed untold numbers of humans. In the aftermath, there is destruction and despair. And there's the angel Azrael riding his dead horse through a weird western landscape where Bibles hold magic powers and where ghosts and ghouls bring terrors, and so do angels and humans. Now, in this particular story, Azrael must fight off some fierce war ghosts and also has to face an old friend turned foe. If you like this story, please check out Peter Derbyshire's other tales about Azrael in Beneath Ceaseless Skies. With this new one, there are 4. So you can find them all at Beneath Ceaseless Skies. The other 2 are The Angel Azrael Delivers Justice to the People of the Dust, and The Angel Azrael Delivers Small Mercies. Now, apparently there is also a novel coming set in this world, and I cannot wait to read it. My next story pick is Idomenea by Eris Young at Pseudopod, and it's narrated by Steph P. Bianchini. Now, oh my, is all I can say. If you want to read an unsettling, disturbing horror tale that burrows into the ground, into an ancient grave, and into the past and into history to bring you a different kind of blood-drinking creature, then this story is most certainly for you. Young says about this story, the speculative elements from the story are based on the death masks found in the grave circles at the site at McKinney. I have taken serious artistic liberties with the archaeology and the language linear B. Now, I loved every delicious drop of the story, and I love the way it plays around with perspective and power, uh, and how it is sort of subtly describing what is going on without revealing too much. It's also beautifully narrated by Bianchini. My next story pick is Wind Settles in the Bones by Stephen Grenade at Cast of Wonders, narrated by Miyuki Jane Pinkard. This is an excellent science fiction story that deftly weaves together the space-bound thrills of solar wind racing and a dysfunctional family drama. It's about Sin, who has worked hard since she was a child to make it as a solar wind racer, working really hard with her coach Fiona to become one of the best. But along the way, she's cut all contact with her father, who did not approve of her obsession with the sport. And now he's gone. He's died. In addition to her grief, Sin has to deal with a betrayal and her own past. Grenade captures Sin's grief and anger so well, and I love the way the story allows Sin to find a way to go on and find some kind of solace, even though the odds are stacked against her. My next story pick is Civilian Assumptions by Dominique Dickey in Lightspeed magazine. I love stories about sentient ships, and in this story we meet Maddox, a spaceship captain and fighter for the consortium among the stars, and their ship, Olivia. They've been bonded almost their entire lives, but now Olivia is dying, and Maddox, who should be a fighter, who should be leaving Olivia and heading out with their crew, is devastated and cannot leave her. Captain and ship should not be able to or even willing to love each other, and yet. This is a tender and piercing story that went straight to my heart. My next story pick is Apolepsy, a Descaling by Susan Palumbo in Lightspeed. I'll read a quote from the story. I find Alida scale sticky with ichor, tucked between the tentacles of our pink anemone bed. I tweeze it out from the undulating appendages with my thumb and index finger and flounder against my escalating heart rate. Oh, this is a beautiful, fierce, and heartbreaking merfolk story, and a take on the Little Mermaid that moves it into a darker, deeper territory. Here, the mermaid doesn't choose to be magically transformed into a human because of a prince. Instead, that transformation is a sort of natural process, or maybe more like a disease. Anyway, some kind of transformation, and its effects are devastating, as it means that she must leave everything and everyone behind. My next story pick is The History Eaters by Marissa James in Kaleidotrope. This is a gorgeous flash story set in a community near an archaeological site where outsiders come to dig up and look for the past, while disregarding the people who still live nearby, not realizing that the past is actually still alive right here and now. I love the physical, visceral flavor of the story and the way the fragments of the past are literally passing on the old knowledge as they are consumed. My next story pick is Everything You Once Were by Mariska Pichette in Flash Fiction Online. I'll read a line from this story. You don't remember drowning, but you know you are no longer a girl. Your eyelashes have become aphids. Your tendons are unwrapped from your bones and tied instead to mycelia. Your bones abandon their calcium in favor of xylem, phloem, sap replacing blood. Skin peels into petals. This is a spellbinding lyrical tale about death and rebirths and finding new ways of existing in the world. In each reincarnation for the character, there are echoes of other lives, of all the lives, as time and space and memory and life are spun out together in new combinations and new forms. My next story pick is A Hole in the Light by Annalie Newitz in Sunday Morning Transport. Oh gosh, I love this story to bits. It's set on the planet Skiff, a planet that has been inhabited for generations, by creatures that are not at all humanoid, but who are very much intelligent and very much social. They live together in communities, sharing ideas and molecules and their lives with each other, and at all times they are aware of the big puddle in the sky above them. Overhead, the big puddle rose in the sky, a dark maw in the swirl of the gleaming firmament, a promise, her physics teacher had once said, that the universe would eventually become a void lit only by distant, unreachable nuclear reactions. So our main character is Arch, one of these creatures that lives on Skiff, and she is stricken by grief, setting out on a journey to memory, an ancient city where the stars and the universe and the past are studied. I don't know, this is just such a beguiling story, thoughtful and with effortless, intricately crafted world building that made me crave more of Arch and more of Skiff and more of this part of the universe. My next story pick is The Blade, the Hammer by Lena Rather in Baffling Magazine. This is an aching and brilliant take on the concept of being the chosen one and not being able to freely choose what to do with your life and yourself. The horror of war lurks in the background as Sanan and Mia talk to each other, maybe for the last time, before Sanan has to go off to become a hero, a protector. There's a sweetness and a sharpness to the story that makes it cut deep. My next story pick is How the Wolf Domesticated Herself by December Cuccaro in Baffling Magazine. I love wolf stories, and I love shape-shifting stories, and this is both of those things. It's also strange and surreal beneath the surfaces of fur and skin. We meet the wolf, and the wolf meets a man, and things go badly. Then things change, and the wolf finds that she is becoming something other than she was. The prose is just gorgeously evocative here, and there's a dark edge to the story, an unsettling quality that I really appreciate. My next story pick is This Tattered Maroon Sentinel by Mark A. Criley in Martian, the magazine of science fiction drabbles. So much goodness is packed into this drabble. A whole epic, really. History and future as we find out what the marooned sentinel saw. Now, Martian is a great place for beautiful, sharp, and glorious drabbles. 100 words to tell a story. Exactly. And that's sometimes all you need. And sometimes it leaves me wanting a whole novel, but that's not a story. My next story pick is Skitterdead by Mel Castle in Nightmare. This is a wonderfully strange ghost story where the ghost is so small that all it can animate after death is a centipede crawling around in the office where the person died. Now, I love how Castle takes us inside the mind of the ghost, but also very vividly takes us inside the body of the centipede. This is a trippy and decidedly unique and haunting story. And my final story pick for this roundup is A Girl of Nails and Teeth by Hannah Yang in Nightmare. I'll read a line from this story. The girl has not yet seen the simulacrum. She has only caught glimpses of the blueprints, which her mother takes out once a year to update the necessary measurements, the size of her feet, the circumference of her skull, the length of each arm. And this story packs such an emotional wallop in the way it depicts the quiet, hidden horror of this mother-daughter relationship. There is no gore or violence here, not in the way we might expect from horror, but the violence and the terror and the twisted reality of this small family's life permeate every word. And this is an outstanding horror flash. And that's all I had for you for this roundup. Thanks so much for listening, and I'll be back next month. Thank you.